Hello, hello, hello. Mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2. All right, gonna make sure we got all the technical issues out the way first here. Y'all know how it goes. One second, let's stop that. All right, so somebody give me a thumbs up in the comment section if you can hear me. Breaks out my sound is my mic sounds nice. Before we start yapping here, you can hear me. Here we go. Oh, excellent. Thank you, Dixon. Welcome, welcome to Encompass, a presentation on HVAC. So I'm kind of whispering with my like my like what do you call it, church voice or work voice. Next room behind me, we actually have training going on. So I gotta turn down the energy a little bit. But we've got a great lineup coming for you. We've got Jennifer, aka HVAC Chick, from Skillcat. If you don't know what Skillcat is, I get it. Either you're living under a rock or you're new to the business, right? Skillcat is one of the best applications for HVAC classes, appliance repair. It's an app. Is virtually an education in the palm of your hands. So Jennifer will get more into that and how you connect it with Skillcat. But first, let me show you something. I'm dating myself, Fire Marshal Bill there. Let me show you something. Let me go to my, and of course the class is lighting out, so technicians about to walk by me all loud. So yeah, I got to excuse the background noise. Hang on, I got trying to walk and chew gum here at the same time. And presentation, tab or window. I think we'll do window. You know, let's just do entire screen. Let's just make it easy. So it's gonna look a little ugly at first. All right, that's the ugly part. Boom. All right, here we go. So Encompass, again, if you're living on a rock or you're new to the business, Encompass is one of the largest parts distributor in the country. We have strategic locations located throughout the country to get to you within 1 to 2 business days. This is our homepage, encompass.com. Obviously, there's a tab for appliance parts, HVAC, but for the most part, you're going to be putting in model numbers and part numbers and searching, right? Also, let's share un momento. The training tab. So you scroll down, you go to the training tab, and here you will see our list of classes. So if this is your first class, you're in for a treat. If you've seen our classes before, you already know what to expect. The best. Make sure you're taking your notes, doing what you got to do, so you can remember this stuff. And then also you can watch the rebroadcast on Encompass YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and put in Encompass parts, that usually pulls us up because there's a bunch of other Compass names in there, and that'll pull us up. But as you can see, our lineup for this month, today we've got HVAC class, virtual training. We've got a Samsung class coming up, GE Smart HQ from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. GE himself, Juan Morales, is coming up, and that class is going to be in Habla Español. So that's going to be in Spanish. So don't miss that. We have a Spanish classes lined up. So I don't know what else we can do. We bring it all to you: HVAC, appliance repair, and also Spanish language contents, right? So I'm sure we're working on French or whatever else we need to do to get this information to you as technicians. So that's on encompass.com. Also, you can go to our Facebook page. On our Facebook page, you'll see our class coming up. We have a 4-day seal system class coming up. That class actually is next week, so that'll be Monday if you're watching this live today. This class is being taught by Richard Green, professional trainer, so he does for a living. The guy worked on ships in the Navy and has a great background. So this class is 4 days. It's covering refrigeration, HVAC, Vulcan lockering, and you lock in for 4 days in Atlanta. We've got another class coming up too in Dallas. So keep an eye on the training page for that. Join the Facebook group. This Facebook group is Appliance Repair Community Network, supported by Encompass. So that's all the business right there. Now, most of you are going to be here for HVAC. How do you find HVAC parts? Well, you go to the training page, the main page, right? You can click, let's go back to that. And you can just click on the HVAC here, which will bring you to this page. So we're continuing our reputation for only supplying OEM parts. So when you buy parts from us, it's coming directly from the manufacturer. We go out and spend the money and they give you the availability to purchase these parts. So it's available. It's on our website. You click and choose the part you want. We have whole units. We've got parts. And obviously, the best thing to do is to log on with a part number to find your part. So. And don't forget to log in, right? Because if you're not logged in, it's not going to show you. It's not going to show you your wholesale price. It's going to show you retail price. And more HVAC plugin, baby. This is the flyer, HVAC. So that's all the information. We got our dedicated line on there, our Fix Me team. And again, this is Encompass showing you our commitment to the industry. We know you rather be out working on machines. You don't want to get caught up in busy work, putting out fires, all the things that come along with managing a business. So we have our Fix Me team, 85575 Fix Me. This is people at home with a headset on like me. I'm not at home, but they have a headset on. And you call within 2 to 3 rings. Hello, how can I help you? Let's go. So you can get back to work and get this done. So definitely take advantage of the Fix Me team. And if you have any questions, hang on, let me stop sharing. Boom. So if you have any questions, you know what to do. LOYR, lean on your rep. My contact information is scrolling below. Now, I feel like I'm gonna open an act. If you go to a comedy show or a concert, like you got the opening act, So here is the Beatles, the main star right here, the main talent, the Bruno Mars or Katy Perry. What's the?
That's quite the introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer, for HVAC Chick. Is it HVAC Chick or Chicks? How's it go?
It's HVAchicks, but yeah, same deal.
Oh, I keep saying A. Oh, duh. It's 1 C, and I'm saying it. Yeah, okay, I'm saying it all wrong.
Well, yeah, but it was a dumb idea because now when you read it, it's just HVAChicks. So I mean, there's.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's catchy, man. Especially, yeah. I think it's catchy though. It's cool. Hopefully you patent that, or
we did.
Not put it out there. Okay, good.
Yeah. It's pretty great though.
I want to thank you for number one. I have respect for anyone that teaches, because that means you don't. You're not thinking on, I'm keeping all this information to myself. I want to create competitors, or blah blah blah, whatever the mentality is. No, you're like, you know what? Keep spreading the information, keep it out there. So I thank you for that so much.
The way I see
So
it is I don't want to keep going behind technicians that don't have the information I have, right? So someday every technician will have the information I have and we'll all just be happily working together, I hope.
there
But
we
in a
go.
perfect world.
Team. Hey, it's an old saying, none of us is better than all of us.
That's right.
So that's excellent.
Very true.
Speaking of that, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What's going on? What's Skillcat, and what's your background? What can we expect the next hour or so of content?
Absolutely. So my name's Jennifer Manzo. For those of you who don't know me, I am a HVAC technician, business owner, trainer, and coalition owner. I own HVAChicks Coalition, it's a free training coalition. We do a lot like what Reggie does here. He's on a far larger scale than us for sure, but we do the same thing. We like Reggie said, we don't want to gatekeep the information. We want to get it out there to every technician that wants it. The thing about, appliance repair, HVAC, these trades that we're in is that people in our trades typically like to learn. They want to make themselves better. You're not going to see a roofer going online after work learning more about roofing, but you will see an HVAC tech or an appliance repair tech or a maintenance tech always doing that. And so, where there is a need, we try to fill it. And so that's what I'm doing, just like you guys are at Encompass. And then I'm also a business owner. I own my company here in Maine. It's a very small company. We're a 3-man crew, and that's it. That's how it's always been for 6 years, which is pretty great. I am an HVAC engineer. I own an engineering firm as well. So I do HVAC duct design, layouts, things like that for other companies throughout the US. So that's pretty much who I am. But I am also mainly my favorite job, I'll say, is lead trainer for Skillcat app. So Skillcat is, like Reggie said, it's an education in the palm of your hand. It is a 100% virtual online trade school. So when you're downloading the Skillcat app, you can go through and you can search, like say, you had trouble reading schematics today. So you open up the Skillcat app when you get home, you look for schematics courses, you go through them, you get certified in that. You get certified in anything you take on Skillcat. So that helps to boost your portfolio, to get better jobs, to get raises, just to prove to your boss your aptitude, your worth. And then on top of that, you can have a training plan set. So you can either, search for that thing that you were struggling with today, or you can start yourself on a path to get your EPA license or get your NATE certifications. Or I have a bunch of students on there where I choose their training path. So I'll say, this is what I think this student needs, and I'll set them on a path where I choose everything they're going to learn. Either way you decide to do it, you can always explore. We have an explore tab where you can search for whatever it is you're looking for. You can change your plan at any time. There is absolutely, you guys, and this is the best thing about Skillcat. People say that the best thing about Skillcat is that it's cheap, right? At $10 a month. However, the best thing about Skillcat is that there's no micromanagement of you whatsoever. You are sitting on your couch at your house, picking what you want to learn, and then you're doing as much of that course as you want. If you start a course and you don't like it, it's boring you or whatever, you can just change and pick another one, which is great. And we don't only have HVAC. We have HVAC, plumbing, appliance repair. We have even oil and gas on there. I mean, if there's anything trade-wise that you guys want to learn, download the Skillcat app for sure. So that's the plug and play. And then the best thing about me is that I love to share knowledge. I spend all of my time learning so that I can turn around and bring that learning back to you guys. So that's just who I am.
Excellent. I was a little late on the page upload there.
Yeah, that's all right. So you can do it on a laptop. You can do it on a phone. It's better in the app because we started out as a startup to build an app, and it started out on a laptop, but we've kind of morphed and changed, and now it's better on the app. But it is your choice, however you guys want to do it. And if anybody needs help with this, you can feel free to email me at jennifer@skillcatapp.com anytime. Or you can even reach out to Reggie, and he can probably get you in touch with somebody if need be.
That's right. You know somebody. You know somebody that knows somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So today, what we're going to learn, so when we were, Brendan, my colleague, and I were going through what, we thought would be good things for Encompass techs to learn. And the first one that came to mind, because I own an HVAC company and because I've been running, a million calls all summer long, like everybody else, is mini splits. So
nice.
a lot of the time, even maintenance technicians have a great understanding of an air conditioner, of a unit itself. Typically, those are conventional splits. But, in the last 10 years, we have absolutely been jumped and thrown right into the mini split game. And a lot of people would say, these are the same units. But that's not the case. So we have a lot of differences between conventional splits and mini splits. And these are differences that can literally have you, sitting at the same unit for 8 hours straight without knowing what the heck is going on, because things are different and you're looking for what you've seen forever. So I really wanted to jump into mini splits, give you guys a little bit of leg up on troubleshooting and understanding how they work. So that's what I've prepared for you today. And Reggie, I think you're frozen. Do you guys see Reggie frozen? Oh, there it goes. He'll be back. If anybody has any questions for me, you can put them in the comments, or you can email them to me at jennifer@skillcatapp.com. You can find me on social media. I'm everywhere. But yeah, if you have any specific questions about mini splits, please put them in the comments so that I can address them and make sure you know what you got going on. And I guess we will just wait for Reggie and see if he comes back for a minute. And if not, I will just jump right into this class. So I try to split my classes up a little bit. So we have about an hour. I try to not bore you guys with a slideshow for that whole hour. I do have a lot of information that I need to get to you via slideshow. So we are going to do a presentation. But after that, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to train you, the way you guys learned in second grade, because I find that is how we stay engaged much better. It's a lot harder to not pay attention when there's a person standing in front of you than it is if there's just a bunch of slides crossing your screen constantly, if that makes sense. So I don't see Reggie, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Again, if anybody has any questions, I will try. Oh, here we go. I will try to keep an eye on the comments as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As Reggie likes to say, it's going to be ugly for a second. So just 1 minute. All right, we'll share this tab. And Reggie's coming back in. You guys should be able to. Yep. Oh, I think Reggie
Mic check, hear me?
Yeah, I think you have to allow my my presentation into the show. There we go. All right.
All right. Yeah, I lost signal for a minute there, so I'm gonna hang out in the background and be a stalker. And
perfect. My favorite.
At it.
All right. Here we go, guys. Ductless mini split systems, components, and troubleshooting. A Skillcat presentation by Jennifer Manzo for Encompass. So what do we know about mini splits? Oh, I'm clicking the wrong thing. What we know about one sec, guys. Okay, you can hear me now. What we know about mini splits is that, like most ACs, they are two pieces. We'll say they're two halves of a whole, right? But within those two pieces, there's a lot of really important components. So what our customers see, what our clients see, is two pieces. They see the piece that goes inside and the piece that goes outside. A lot of the time when they're calling in, for a call where they have no cooling or no heating from their mini split, they're just calling and saying the indoor unit won't come on, or the outdoor unit won't come on, or the indoor unit is frozen up, or the outdoor unit is frozen up. What I want for my technicians, all of you, is for you guys to understand the difference, because just that one call from the customer saying the indoor unit won't come on can tell us a lot. So these are the components that we have in the indoor units. There are a couple missing that I'm going to address, but first we have our air filters. These are what we want to make sure that our customers are pulling out and cleaning. Like, some homes need to clean them every day. Some can get by for a week or two. Some can get by for a couple of months. But what we want to really stress to them is to keep an eye on them and to make sure that when they're dirty, they are getting cleaned. Because behind that air filter, we have the evaporator coils. And you guys know on, your other conventional splits, how imperative it is for a coil to be clean. So with mini splits, we end up with a harder time of that. One thing we can note is it's much smaller, right, than a conventional split. If we see an A coil, we're going to have so much more surface area than we have on these mini split coils. So because of that, we really need to be on top of keeping them clean. Whatever is in the filter, some of which is also in the coil. So filters can't hold everything. They do a great job, but without becoming completely restrictive and not allowing enough airflow across the coil, they can't keep everything out. So when we have customers, if you walk into a home and you notice that there's a lot of candles burning, or they have one of those Scentsy plug-in things, or they use a lot of, say, air sprays, air freshener sprays, things like that. If they have pets, if they have a lot of people a lot of the time, if you notice that the rest of the space is quite dirty, then you can just about assume that you're going to have not only a dirty air filter, but also a dirty coil on these. So because we need so much more surface area than what we're given in a mini split, cleaning becomes more often. So we typically tell customers, whether it's residential or commercial, to do like a quarterly cleaning on their AC units. With mini splits, we need to bump that up a little bit if it's one of those situations where we know the coil gets dirty faster, because every time we have a dirty mini split coil, indoor coil, we will have a breakdown. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we have our air filter on the outside. We pull those out and we come to our coil. Now, behind the coil is probably the most important part. This is our blower wheel. So what I see a lot of the time, especially with maintenance technicians that don't understand a lot about HVAC, not that technician's fault at all. That's, it comes with the job, right? We know a little bit about a lot of things and we do what we can. But what I find a lot is that they will check the air filters, they will check the coil, and then the coil looks clean, appears clean on the outside. So they don't bother to look behind at the blower wheel, or they don't know that that's what's, blowing. They don't know that it's a component of the indoor coil. So that's why I try to really break this down for you guys. Behind that coil is a blower wheel. It is conspicuous. It's hard to see, but it is very important. What this does is it's not like a fan. The way that we have fans or blower assemblies in, say, a conventional split or a furnace, we don't have that in a mini split. In a mini split, we have I'll call it rubber for lack of a better word, but it's kind of a plasticky rubber blower wheel. And what that does is it constantly spins. This is the fan that we think of, is the spinning of this wheel. So when this wheel is spinning, everything that's coming through this coil, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but everything that's coming through this coil is not only getting trapped in the coil, but whatever doesn't get trapped in the coil, see between these coil loops, lots of things escape. And the things that escape get caught on the blower wheel. So I don't know what states you guys are in. In Maine, I will just have a disclaimer for those of you, because this is happening a lot in a lot of states. We have recreational marijuana here in Maine. So a lot of my customers are grows. So when you have a grow facility growing plants, you end up with that sticky crystallization on this blower wheel. And there are certain products that you need to use in order to clean that. But make sure in any application whatsoever, you need to check this blower wheel on every maintenance call. If it seems gunked up, even if it just seems like it's dust, this blower wheel can be pulled. It's not an easy job, but it's a necessary job. So we don't like to pull the blower unless we have to. But if you see that blower is dirty and you can't get to it from, pulling off this plastic and getting up under it, a lot of the time you can't really get at it unless you have tiny fingers like me. Even then, I can only get to one spot on this blower. So we unclip this side and we pull this blower out. And when we pull that blower out, we can, set it in a bucket with, I like to use like a coil cleaner, and you can use any brand that you like. But we like to put this in a bucket, let it soak, and then pull it off and spray it with an ultra hard hose. And then you just pop it back in. A lot of the time, people, if you're there for maintenance, people may not even know that their unit is running inefficiently or that it's not cooling well. So that's up to us, the technicians, to make sure that every single thing we can do on maintenance gets done. So that's the indoor unit. Evaporator coil absorbs heat from the indoor air, which cools the space, right? We do not, for those of you who don't know, who haven't done a lot of AC, we don't cool a space. we remove the heat from a space. So with an air conditioner, our evaporator coil is going to absorb the heat that's inside, and it's going to take it via the pipes to the outdoor unit, which is then going to expel that heat outside where it doesn't affect people. So we're not necessarily blowing cold air into a room. That is a side effect of removing heat, is that we're blowing cooler air into the space. But that's not how we dehumidify and how we cool a space. We cool it by removing the heat. So a fan, we just talked about the different types of fans that you can see. On the outdoor unit, you will see a fan. But in this case, when we're talking about the indoor unit, we're talking about that blower wheel. It circulates the air across the evaporator coil and then into the room. It also blows into the room, but the point of it is to blow across the evaporator coil. And then our air filters, again, trap dust and particles. They improve the indoor air quality, and they also keep the coil cleaner. If we didn't have filters on these machines, those coils would be dirty every other day. They would be terrible. And then we have control boards. For the sake of this training, I put control board. In some types of units, there are more than one control board. So you'll see that in sort of the newer communicating style mini splits. You'll see, I'm not sure if I can say brands or not, but there's two particular brands that are well known that typically will have more than one indoor control board. So they control different things. It's really important to check out your wiring diagram, your schematics, and know which one you're messing with. These manage the operation of the indoor unit and communicate with the outdoor unit. So we have a communicating control board that communicates with the indoor unit, and some of them have another one that separately controls this fan. And those include, obviously, our safety switches. We have pressure switches, we have temp sensors, pressure sensors. All of those things are included in the control board. I'm not leaving them out. They're just not main components. And then that brings us to the outdoor unit. The outdoor unit is my bread and butter. It's my favorite part of an air conditioner because we can remove all the heat that we want from a space, but we have nowhere to put it without the outdoor unit. So this outdoor unit, this one is very, very basic. You guys that have seen them know that this is very basic, but in a mini split, they are super basic compared to a conventional split. So in a mini split, you have your fan, you have your coil. Your coil is going to start here with your U-bends, and then it's going to go straight out back, and it's almost always going to run across the back. There are some mini splits that use a regular style condenser, but most mini splits are using these, what we call cassette style condensers. And it's literally just a fan, a coil, the compressor, and then control board, of course. You'll have your start run components. I think that's kind of trying to show us here where the wiring is for that. But that will be in the same compartment on the end where the compressor is. You just need to open up the separate electrical compartment, and then you'll find your start run components. So the components of the outdoor unit are the compressor, which compresses the refrigerant, increasing its pressure and temperature for circulation. The condenser coil releases heat absorbed from the indoor unit into the outside air, allowing refrigerant to cool and condense. So as we're taking that heat from inside and we're bringing it, through the line set out to the condenser coil, we're using that air in the condenser in order to cool and condense. Okay. But we're also using the fan that's in there to blow it outside where it doesn't affect people's comfort. Right. So when it is extremely hot outside, mini splits specifically have a very hard time rejecting the heat. And so when you hear that, when you hear rejecting heat, what we're talking about is the heat from the indoor space that is brought out to the outdoor condenser and then is supposed to be rejected into the air. But if the air that you're removing from the space, so let's start here. And just for those of you who don't know, which most of you I'm sure do, and I'm not trying to dumb it down at all, I just want to be clear. So the air that is hot is always going to find the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is always going to be to the cold. So heat, any air that is heated is always going to be looking for a way to get to cold. So when it is 75 degrees outside and we're removing 85 degree air or 85 degree heat, we'll say, from the indoor space, it blows out into the cold like none other. And it immediately wicks it away from that outdoor unit, never to be seen again, never to harm anybody or make anybody uncomfortable. But when it's 100 degrees outside and we're pulling 85 degree air from the space, it's a little harder to reject. So we'll talk about the fans on mini splits that are a little bit different from the fans on a typical conventional split. And then we have the control board. Again, sometimes they can have more than one, but there will always be a control board that has sensors, temperature and pressure sensors, etc. in it. All right. So now I was going to put this message into my own words, but I think AC Service Tech said it best, Craig Migliaccio, so I'm just going to quote him. So a note from acservicetech.com, how mini split charge differs from conventional split charge. Most current mini split systems are VRF. For those of you who don't know, VRF is variable refrigerant flow. That means that the refrigerant flow changes depending on what the needs are of the load in the home. These systems include an EEV, electronic expansion valve. Most of us are used to seeing a TXV as a metering device. Those are what we see in conventional splits that are 410A, and most R22 as well. But in this situation, in a mini split situation, you'll have an EEV. A DC inverter compressor. So instead of an AC compressor, we have a DC compressor in mini splits, along with a DC powered condenser fan and DC powered indoor blower motor. So everything in your mini split runs on DC power instead of AC power. Why is that important? Because all of these components are powered with DC voltage. They can all be ramped up and down in capacity by the main control board. So the main difference between a conventional split and a mini split is that variable change. So we are able to ramp the fans up when we have a high load, and we're able to drop those fans down when we don't, so that we're not freezing any coils. We have so much more ability for control with a mini split than we do a conventional split. So the control board uses temperature and sometimes pressure sensors, depending if it has them or not, in a variety of locations in order to control the operation and safeguard the system. So we have sensors in these mini split systems. Sometimes those sensors are made so that we know what the refrigerant has to do as far as that variable refrigerant flow. Sometimes those sensors are to safeguard the system. So if we have a high pressure switch, right, an HPS or an LPS, that's designed to save the compressor from low pressure or high pressure. But sometimes it's just an outdoor temp sensor to say whether it's, hot enough outside to turn the AC on, or if we need to switch into heating. Lots and lots of sensors. Those are typically the reasons that we break down, but we'll get into that. All right, let's take a break. HVAC fun fact break. So we've been talking about mini splits, which we really started as technicians seeing in the last 10 to 15 years, really more in the last 5, right? But what's interesting is that Mitsubishi and Toshiba were the first companies to introduce mini split ACs to the market, but in the 1950s. That is crazy to me. That's always been crazy to me. You guys, if you have any questions about anything, please put them in the comments and I'll make sure I keep an eye on it. But yeah, the 1950s, we've been using mini splits since, and only now are we really concerned with whether technicians know how to use them properly, right? That's interesting. And that matters, because you guys are going to be the ones that change this fact. You guys are going to be the ones that go, in 10 years, everyone's like, okay, well, now we have a really good grasp on mini splits. And it's not surprising that they started out in the 50s. But right now, it's surprising that we know so little about them when they've been out for so long. All right, let's talk breakdowns. So mini splits break down, in my opinion, more often than conventional splits. And that's because there's just a lot more to them. So as far as components go, they don't have more components. What they have is more controls. They need to be controlled more than a conventional split. We've all heard an older tech say, oh, she's beer can cold, move on. We've all heard, let's pressure test with a lighter. Like we've heard all of these things. It's just not our reality anymore. Beer can cold isn't our reality anymore. So you can have a cold suction line and have a unit that's not working properly. And we need to be trained to be able to spot that, and especially in mini splits. So one key difference in the way that we install mini splits, and this is where we get into the install part, is flared connections. Mini splits, you can braze them. They don't typically have filter dryers on them. And the reason for that is that we have these flared connections. So we have filter dryers, which are meant, most of you already know, to pull moisture and contaminants from the system after we have installed it. A lot of the reason for the need of that is brazing. Lots of people not, purging with nitrogen while they braze. And, there's lots of things that can get into the pipe before it's brazed. So we put a filter dryer on that system to help to pull that stuff out after vacuum. In mini splits, we don't have a filter dryer. And we don't have a filter dryer because we have these really clean flare connection line sets. I'm actually I kind of want to get into something else in this picture, but first let's get into the flares. So when you get a line set from your supplier or your distributor, a lot of the time we're starting to get into it just comes with a flare nut, but a lot of the times it will have the flare nut on it and it will have what looks like a flare at the end of the pipe to keep that flare nut onto the pipe, right? So it doesn't fall off. If you're getting that from the manufacturer that way, that is not a flare connection. That is what they do to keep the nut from falling off of the pipe and to keep you from losing it or from getting lost in transition to you. So when we get that pipe with that thing that looks like a flare and the flare nut on it, a lot of times we don't know that. So we will connect it as is, as if it's a flare connection. It's not. What they do is they put the pipe on a flat surface and they squish it. And that is how they keep the nut on. What we have to do is we have to cut that connection off. We have to cut that, we'll call it a flare for lack of a better word, but that squish off. And once we cut that off, we then have to reflare the end of this line. A lot of people don't know that. They connect it as is. And after they have pulled a vacuum and they're done with their job and they go to startup, their system is empty because that was not a flare connection. That was just a squished piece of pipe. So what we have to do is we have to use a flare tool in order to actually flare that where it's going to be even on all sides. So if we don't flare it properly, we could have a thinner spot on one side, which will break off once the nut is tightened. We could have a spot where it's too thick so the nut won't tighten all the way. And we could have issues with torque. We could break off the entire flare connection if the whole connection is too thin. So we need to be making sure that we're using a flare tool and that we are using it properly and we're knowing what our flare should look like, what it should feel like. And what a lot of people do is put some nylog on the face of the flare nut. We don't use it necessarily on the threads in this situation because it's not a thread locker. All it will do is actually seal the flare, the flared bump, we call it, the flared bump to the flared nut. So if you put a little bit of nylog or another type of OEM lubricant on that, and then you squish them together, that's going to make your seal last longer. Now, if you put that thread sealant, or if you put that lubricant on the threads, it will make the nut spin on better, and it will make you have a better connection as well, but it won't actually seal anything. That's a common misconception for those of you who don't know. But yeah, we need to be making sure that our flares are correct, or we could have absolute 100% charge leaks where we lose all of the charge. It's not a good thing. So that's one reason they break down. Now, I just want to address this line set here. So this white insulation has actually been recalled by many manufacturers that make it. And that's because it has an enzyme in it when they manufacture it, that when it touches copper over time, it can cause pinhole leaks. It's corrosive in nature, but it's not corrosive as if you put steel and copper together and left them that way. It is just an enzyme that's in this line set. It's a chemical that causes the copper to spring holes. So if you see this white line set when you come to a no cool call, pull that back and look under it and see if you find any holes, because usually that's the reason that we've lost the charge in that case. We're using black or aluminum line set now. And then the next thing, obviously, I'll touch on the dirty coils and filters. We did talk about that a little bit, but you guys, I can't even express how often this is the problem. Almost every single mini split I've ever been called to a no cool call, whether it was the reason it wasn't cooling or not, it was dirty. So when you hook up your probes or whatever it is you're using, your gauges, your manifolds, analogs, doesn't matter. When you hook up your gauges of any kind to this system, you are not going to get correct temperature and pressure readings if your system is dirty. So regardless of why you have a no cool call, regardless of what the problem was, you need to be making sure that these units are clean. Again, the indoor coil is right behind these filter holders. So you're going to pull these filters out. Usually there'll be a little rectangle here where my mouse is. it's behind there, but I don't know if you guys can see it, which has sort of a HEPA filter in it. It's a little bit better IAQ control, but without completely blocking off airflow to the rest of the filter. So you need to pull those out, clean those. They can be washed right in a sink. Or you can pull them outside and just hose them off. These are not fragile in any way. You just want to make sure that they're clean on both sides, because they do grab particles. So you have to think about, when you're putting water through there, it doesn't always go through to the other side and out. Sometimes it gets trapped between, and then you have to flip it over and wash it again. So just make sure you're cleaning both sides. Pop these little HEPA filters off of them before you clean them. These cannot be cleaned. They have to be replaced. I keep a roll of HEPA in my truck, and I just cut a little rectangle and pop it in there when they need to be replaced. And then behind that is your coil. If this filter looks like this, your coil looks even worse, I promise. And we need to make sure that we're doing the Della Bill test, we like to call it. I call it for my new technicians. Della Bill test means that while the unit is running, we are putting you'll have to do it on the outdoor unit or the indoor unit, depending where your reversing valve is, whether you're in heat or cooling. But you want that coil to be able to hold a dollar bill against the coil without any help. If you can't, then you have a lack of airflow and you need to do a better job cleaning. Again, pull that blower wheel. A lot of the time, the blower wheel is running slow because it's gunked up with stuff, and that will be a reason for a no cool as well. And then burn, start, run components or wiring. So this is an absolutely cooked contactor. They won't look like this, you guys, I promise. This was just an extreme case. So when we have a contactor that is burnt, usually it's on one contact or two contacts. For those of you who know about contactors, it has a mechanism that pulls in. And once that pulls in, the 4 contacts, L1, L2, T1, and T2, or there are more on bigger ones, industrial stuff, they will pull in and touch. So they touch the contacts behind them. So when those contacts are dirty, we can't make a good connection. So they will kind of what we call chatter. We call it contactor chatter. So when you have a contactor pulled in and it's not able to make a good connection, those contacts will do this. They will jiggle, and then we'll end up with a kind of sound. When it runs like that for a long time, we end up with charring on those contacts. So you won't typically see on this face here anything. Sometimes the burn will be bad enough that it will burn, the wire up here or one of the outsides of the plastic casing. But usually you have to look behind here at these little contacts behind there and see if they are charred or cooked. Those can be cleaned with a wire brush. They have a product called contact cleaner that you can spray on, and you can kind of do it that way. Again, a contactor is not an expensive part. Typically, if it's, gone bad once and you need to clean it to fix it, to get it going again, you should just be replacing it. It's not expensive, and customers typically understand what a contactor is and how important it is, because you can't get power without this. So for it to be a relatively cheap part is a pretty good thing. The capacitor, let's go with that. Some mini splits have 2, some have 4, some have 1. Capacitor is a capacitor, right? So capacitors hold capacitance. That's what they do. They help the fans to start, and then they help the fans to run without draining a bunch of power directly from, the panel. So we wire the fans into these. And then sometimes you'll have the contactor wired to this. Sometimes you'll have this directly wired to the compressor. So sometimes you'll have 2. You'll have 1 for the fan, 1 for the compressor. In mini splits, a lot of the time it's 2 smaller ones. What we need to be doing with capacitors is we need to be checking the UF/MF on it. So another common misconception that I don't want to confuse you guys. On a capacitor, you have a UF/MF rating. So that UF is microfarads. We're reading capacitance in farads. So if you have a 35 MF, that's millifarads. If you have a 35 UF, that's microfarads. So we need to be discharging. So the capacitor holds electricity is what it does. You do not touch this after you pull it out of a system. When you're disconnecting, you do not touch this. This has to be discharged. I usually use a screwdriver to go right across the terminals, and that will suck the power out of it so that it's no longer harmful to you. But these will give you a zap if you don't. So after we've discharged the capacitor, we notice that it looks like this. It has a bulge at the top. What we call that is cap swelling. So the capacitor is swelling. When that happens, the capacitor is junk no matter what. You cannot put this back into a system. It is junk. If there are no obvious signs after you've discharged the capacitor, you can test the capacitor in microfarads, and you'll usually have to be like within plus or minus 5. So if it calls for 35 and you have a 30, you're getting 30 off of it, your capacitor is good. If it calls for 35 and you have 45, it's not good. So yeah, test your capacitors. A lot of the time people miss the capacitor. Like, let's be real. It's a tiny little thing that you wouldn't think would break your whole unit down. Like, nothing's running on this thing. It can't be the capacitor. A lot of the time it is, because these are VFDs. So if this coil, the evaporator coil, heats up to a certain degree to where it's supposed to be, and then wants to turn the fan on, but it can't, you're going to have your whole system shut off. Because this, if we don't have fans, we don't have airflow. When we don't have airflow, that will cook the compressor eventually, because we just have this superheated vapor through the evaporator, and we don't get any liquid that way because we're not able to cool it down. So that's typical. We have melted wires here. You guys know what melted wires to look for. If you are doing a maintenance, we think about the contactor, we think about the capacitor, we think about the dirty coils, we think about the flare connections. If you're there for a maintenance, you need to be checking every wire for connectivity. So if you open up the electrical panel and everything looks fine, nothing's melted, nothing's burnt, you still need to be taking each wire and doing the tug test, making sure that they're all, 100% connected, making sure they're tight, making sure that they're not going to bounce off of their location and arc throughout your electrical, because it would really suck if you were hired for maintenance and, the next day something happened where that wire came undone and bounced around, arcing all of the start run components and the compressor. And all you would have had to have done on maintenance is do a tug test. And that customer is going to be very upset if you were just there for maintenance and then they have an arcing situation where it shorts out a bunch of components. You want to make sure that your butt is covered by doing that tug test. Super easy. Takes 2 minutes, you guys. Never skip the tug test. All right. Are we doing on time? We got a little bit. So I thought this would be cool to show you guys. So I went on, for those of you who don't know, I'm a social media influencer as well. So I have a huge network of other technicians who are at all walks of life. And I thought it would be cool to ask them what they thought you should know. So I picked a few of my favorites. So this one is 100% necessary to tell you guys. Don't drop the condenser on your finger, kids, Matt Summer says. This is something that is so underrated. It's not even funny. These units that we deal with, you guys, whether it's mini split or not, are heavy. And a lot of the time we're one-man shows, or, our company doesn't have enough techs to give every lead a helper. So we're there by ourselves trying to install, especially mini splits, because they're easy to install. A lot of company owners will send one technician to do that. Don't drop the condenser on your finger. If you drop a heavy component, your hands are in the air. You do not try to catch it. You do not try to slide your finger or your foot under it. Let it go. It sucks. It's a big problem, but chances are your finger, like Matt's here, isn't going to save that from falling. The same thing's going to happen. You're just now hurt as well. So for safety reasons, I put this one on here. Sean Bryant says the importance of surge protection. When we were just talking about the melted wires and all of that, surge will, like, from, say you have a lightning strike or you have the power shut off quickly, acutely, you will have surges. And if you don't have surge suppression or protection, you're going to end up with cooked run start components. And that was what I was getting at there. So it happens a couple of ways. Either they just wear out and that's what makes them bad, or something chews them like mice and that's what makes them bad. I've seen that many times. Or surge. So when surge happens, the voltage comes from the disconnect directly backfeeding. So you have your 24 volt side, right? But when a surge happens, it's just throwing, high voltage throughout your entire unit. So when your contactor, your capacitor, your compressor see that high voltage, they're cooked immediately. So one easy thing we can do to prevent this is always make sure that we're using CGFI. We want to make sure we have surge suppression on every single unit so that once in a lifetime crazy 1 in a million thing doesn't happen to us. You don't want to be the one that's having to replace a unit because lightning struck it because you didn't put a $20 GCFI. And then we have torque settings. So this I didn't get into on purpose because of this. Torque settings and the influence of blank when used is well important. I like the blank flare gauge to test the size of the flares. There are flare gauges out there, you guys, that you can buy. Leaks are 90% of my service calls. This was important for me to add. When I'm talking about those factory flares, which is not a flare, I'm not kidding. This is, I would say 90% is a really good representation of how often we see somebody trusting a bad flare. Mini splits, the problem with them is typically low charge, and that's because these flares are not done correctly. If you guys don't know how to do a flare and you need to install a mini split, please reach out to me. You can also look up lots of people on YouTube how to do a proper flare, but it's really important. Make sure. And then the other thing is torque. So in the manual of every single mini split, you will have torque settings. You will have what you need to use a torque wrench on that flare nut. How many pounds of torque do you need to stop at? Over tightening flares breaks them off, causes leaks. Under tightening flares causes leaks. We need to make sure that we're, and I'll get into Vince Hayes's now, RTFM. That's read the fabulous manual. Okay. For all intents and purposes, read the fabulous manual. When we don't read the manual, we have no idea what the OEM specifications are for the job we're doing. When you guys are looking at Encompass parts, you're looking there because you want the OEM, because they know what they're talking about and what they're doing, right? Trust it. Trust them. The manual is your best friend. If you can't find the manual, if it doesn't have it with it, or you misplaced it, you don't know where it is, you can look online, you can Google the model number, or you can go and download Manual's library and find almost any appliance on the face of the earth right in there for free. No excuses. RTFM. In that manual, you will find these torque settings as to how tight your flares need to be. If you're just giving it a few ugga-duggas, now we're back to beer can cold. A few ugga-duggas might work. It might work. It might work on all your fittings, or it might work on 3 fittings and not 4. Or it might not work on any. We are not trusting that. If we are not torquing, we're guessing, period. So when the manufacturer, the OEM manufacturer says, use this many pounds of torque, and you give it 3 ugga-duggas, you're just guessing. Okay? So those are the things that technicians wanted you guys to understand. All right. It's the wake-up slide. Everybody snap out of it, right? I know slideshows can be absolutely boring, and just listening to my voice say the same things is boring, things that you already know. But that's why I try to only do this for a little bit of our time. I'm going to actually teach you guys now without the use of this slideshow. I'm going to stop screen sharing. All right. And I'm just going to adjust to make this easier for you guys to see. You probably won't be able to read it. I have this on a slideshow, but again, I don't want you guys to be sitting at a slideshow all the time. So I am going to just do my best here. So this resource is from AC Service Tech, Craig Migliaccio, the guy that we quoted earlier. He is one of my greatest teachers. And because I trust the people I learn from, I want you guys to learn from them too. So he's provided us with these posters that I have up all over my training center, and they're incredibly informative. So right now, I just want to bring you guys all back, for those of you who weren't at our last Encompass training where Reggie and I did the refrigeration cycle. I just want to bring you guys all back for a second to the refrigeration cycle, because no matter what kind of unit we're using, the refrigeration cycle remains the same. So sometimes we have to add more parts. Sometimes we have to take away more parts, but the refrigeration cycle never changes. So in a mini split situation, here's our indoor unit. Here's our evaporator coil. So when we're entering into the evaporator coil, we're entering as a low pressure, low temperature vapor. So again, we're in vapor form, but we're not high pressure and high heat. And that's a common misconception. A lot of people think that we can only be in vapor form if we're high pressure, high heat. Not the case with the refrigeration cycle. When we enter the evaporator, we are low pressure, low temperature vapor. As we travel through the evaporator, we are turning into, like you can see here, we are kind of a mix of both vapor and liquid. And as we come out of the evaporator, we are a low pressure, low temperature liquid, which makes a little more sense, right? So we're coming down from the evaporator now to the outdoor unit. As you can see, we're going, this is a heat pump, and I'm going to specify that, you guys. You can have a mini split that isn't a heat pump. And the only difference in that situation is you don't have this part. You don't have a reversing valve. This is a reversing valve I'm going to get into in just a minute, but you won't have that in a straight cool. What we call a straight cool is one that is not a heat pump, does not do heat. In this situation, we do heat because most mini splits do. So you're going to travel from the evaporator into the outdoor unit through the reversing valve. And then if we're in straight cool, it's going to come into the accumulator as that low pressure, low temperature vapor. Oh, we're coming out that way. Sorry, we're coming in this way. Okay, so when we're coming in, we're going to go to the compressor as a vapor. Again, compressor never sees liquid. And it doesn't matter what unit you're on. That's not just mini splits. No AC compressor sees liquid. If it sees liquid, it will what we call slug it, and it will eventually copper plate and it will die. So we come in as a vapor and we leave as a vapor on the discharge line. So in this case, the discharge line is going to be a high pressure, high temperature vapor because our compressor just compressed all of that low pressure, low temperature vapor. And now it's the molecules in it are bouncing around going crazy as fast as they humanly possibly can. They're coming through this discharge line where they go into the condenser, and then the condenser is turning it into a liquid again because we don't want to be a liquid at this compressor either way. So the job of the condenser is to turn it back into a liquid. Now, when we go through our metering device, and in this case, it's an EEV because it's a mini split. So our metering device says and knows exactly how much refrigerant to meter at any given time. So we have our full charge of refrigerant going throughout the whole system, but after the metering device, we do not. So as we come back from the evaporator into the, back from the compressor, we'll go this way, into the EEV, we have all of this red liquid, right? All of this hot liquid. And that's going to hit the EEV, and the EEV is going to say, no, we need low pressure liquid, and we need this much. And it's going to only spit out exactly how much that evaporator coil needs. And then we travel back up into the evaporator where we come in as a liquid. And again, we leave as a vapor. So we can reverse that cycle all you want. In the beginning, I was in heating mode. So if you're in heating mode, it's coming in this way. If you're in AC mode, it's coming in this way. If you're in heating mode, it's going to leave this way. If you're in AC mode, it's going to leave this way. So the only difference between heating and AC is this valve right here. I'm going to try to get this close enough for you guys to see it. This is the reversing valve. The reversing valve is built to reverse the flow of refrigerant. So if we need to come into the evaporator as, let's see, if we're in cooling, okay, we're going to come into the evaporator as a low pressure, low temperature liquid. We're going to travel through. We're going to come back in. We're going to go blah, 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 blah. If we are in heating, we're going to come in. This line swaps. We're going to come in the opposite way and come out this way. That's the only difference between cooling and heating when it comes to a mini split. Whether we have the refrigerant reversed. So this, when it reverses, when we put it in heat mode from cool mode, this reversing valve is going to slide. It's going to stop the flow here, and it's going to make the flow go here instead. We have three choices here. We have a discharge as well, but basically this slider will slide over here and let it come down this way, or it will slide over here and let it come down this way. That is the only component that chooses whether we are in heat or air conditioning. So again, if we're in heating, we're coming in as vapor. If we're in cooling, we're coming in as a liquid. Only difference in the refrigeration cycle is that it's reversed. So that is basically what I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to really give you a good grasp of what to check when you're on maintenances. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I would love to answer them for you. Again, mini splits seem more complicated because they are VFD. VRF. But they're not more complicated. Again, the only thing that changes our cycle from heat to cooling is this reversing valve. The only difference between a mini split and a conventional split, really, as far as the flow goes, is this EEV. Usually we have a TXV, not an EV. It's not electronically controlled, but in this case it is. And that helps us. That helps us to really be able to make sure that we're only metering the right amount of refrigerant. So yeah, as we move forward with technology, mini splits are the future, I'm sure. This is basically it. You've got a fan, you've got coils, you've got a compressor, you've got a metering device. If you can, in your mind, know what all those components do, then you can know what's wrong with your mini split. But again, I'm just going to reiterate that 9 times out of 10, the problem is with lack of maintenance. So make sure on your maintenance visits, you're testing those wires, you're amping your fans. You need to know how many amps your fans have so that you can know whether they're going bad or whether they're working well. You test your capacitors, make sure that you're discharging them first, and you check your contactors. You make sure that nothing is scorched, burnt, melted, or chewed. And if you do that, you will have success on every single maintenance visit when it comes to a mini split. Every single one. All right. So if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat. I think Reggie is still here, I feel like.
Hey.
There he is. Hey, Reggie.
Yes. Hey. Excellent stuff. I'm glad I listened because I swear when you discharge capacitors, you use your tongue, and that was the most effective.
Hey, I mean, if we used to test pressure tests with gas with a lighter, I mean.
But that's really good to know, and it's funny because you picked that stuff up. I was watching Iron Man. I think the first Iron Man, the guy mentioned, the guys with the killer so he's gonna touch a capacitor. I was like, hey, I know that. That stuff is true in Hollywood.
My kids with video games, my kids will be playing Call of Duty or something like that, and they'll see a condenser outside, and they'll be like, "That's a condenser."
Yeah. Yeah, and I also love the part about not catching stuff, and that is instinct. You drop something to try to catch it. When you mention that, I visualized it, and my back started hurting right away. Just thinking about it, that would be a bad idea. That's a good heads up.
Yes, I had a technician who dropped a refrigerant tank, and the refrigerant tank, the valve broke off of it, and it was just loosing refrigerant, and he grabbed it.
Wow.
And when he grabbed it, it immediately froze his hands to the tank. Big bubbles all over his hands. Just drop it, guys. Just let it go. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's no joke. Yeah. Well, great stuff. Man, the knowledge about mini splits. We got a comment here. Somebody showing you some love.
Thanks, Marcos. Anytime.
Yeah. And so we'll see you back here again. You guys, next month. If you want to see the date, go to, I don't think we have it set up. We don't have released August yet. We usually release our dates around close to the end of the month. So by next week, our August schedule may show. Or it may be under now. I don't know. But go to Encompass.
Date, just if anybody wants it.
Okay. Go to Encompass.com, scroll down to see our training schedule. 2 of the best apps in the game, Skillcat and Easy Stock. Let me share Easy Stock real quick. Easy Stock is our truck.
Reggie. Our next one is August 14th at 11, and we're doing fall maintenance for residential systems.
Nice.
So everybody knows.
All right, hang on. I'm trying to walk and chew gum here. All right, so you got Skillcat app, and we've got Easy Stock. And the best thing to do, I'm going to share my entire screen because this is kind of hunt for stuff on here. All right, so there's a little ugly part, and boom, there you go. Easy Stock app. Go to your app store and look for that symbol for Easy Stock. This is your truck inventory management app brought to you by Encompass. It's free of charge, and you can manage your inventory. And if you've got one of those, need a capacitor, you can see which bin it is on your very neatly organized truck, because we all have neatly organized trucks.
Guys, I've noticed with Easy Stock that I don't have to keep the little boxes on top of the contactors anymore where I write down that I took one, I end up with a stack of them. Now it's all right on my phone. Use this app, you guys.
Nice.
It's good.
So Easy Stock. Also, if you have multiple trucks, you don't have a capacitor, you can find out if someone close to you has it on their truck. That is the tip of the iceberg on how great Easy Stock is and what it does for you. So go to the App Store, check out Easy Stock. And at some point, we're going to have a 5.0 version of it that actually cleans and organizes your truck for you. That'll be excellent.
It's a van Roomba.
Yeah, my truck is only messy because of speed bumps. That's all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jennifer, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thanks. Shout out to Skillcat. Shout out to your whole network, man. Y'all just awesome, and I'm glad to be a part of it and do our part to share you. Sure. Yep. So, and if you're watching this broadcast after the live, you can still leave comments, and I would make sure we get them to Jennifer and get your questions answered, or just come back for our next live broadcast. Yep. All right. And with that said, thank you everyone for tuning in to Encompass University's version of HVAC. Tune in for our Spanish content. Tune in for our OEM content with our manufacturers such as Whirlpool, GE, Samsung, LG, Hisense, all of them, Electrolux, all coming virtually and in person. So look at our schedule. And with that said, I'll let y'all get back to work. Y'all get out there and go fix something. And don't forget, you need help. LOYR, lean on your rep.